when you look at the pictures, you kind of see the umpire, I think Mark Benson, covering his lips.
So he can't be seen.
So he can't be picked up by cameras telling the Indians, Harbhajan and Sachin, what the Australians are accusing him of saying.
Oh.
And this had already been a month and a half in Australia in this exhausting tour all around the country. I told my wife, and we'd just been married like 2 or 3 years, and I told my wife that, listen, I have to stay extra. And she sent me one terse message back saying, happy cricket to you. I thought,
Wow. Oops.
It's in the air. It's a 6.
Welcome to a century of stories cricket, brought to you by IDFC FIRST Bank, now recognized by Forbes among the world's best banks of 2025. And with me today, the word veteran is used liberally by a lot of people, but legend, I think he has to wait for that. So between veteran and legend, a veland is where you stand, Gaurav Kalra.
Namaskar.
Journalist for 4 decades.
no,
I did some research. On your 4th decade of journalism.
almost.
You can't deny it. You haven't even bothered to touch up the hair. So it's all done. Yeah.
Yeah.
But cricket soothsayer and philosopher, as well as obviously lover. And he's going to shed some light on a very interesting topic for us. I don't know, controversy and anything, sports or anything else, I mean, that just doesn't die. It'll stay forever. So this goes back to 2007-8. If you're very young, you may have to check out some YouTube videos and things like that, because I don't know where you'll get the information other than here. We had a very acrimonious, very controversial, and almost, I would compare it to Bodyline, where England and Australia nearly came to, diplomatic ties would be severed. And it was almost the same thing with us, because suddenly it was 2 sides of the fence and became very political, and India versus Australia, and racism's ugly head was in the middle of it all. Gaurav Kalra, what happened on that wonderful tour of 2007 and 8?
Yeah, and Cyrus, it was the first time I'd ever toured Australia as a journalist. And you kind of went in and thought 2 evenly matched teams. India was playing really well at the time. Some of the greatest players
Best batting lineup.
in our history. Yeah. Part of that team, Sachin, Saurav, Lakshman, Rahul, all of them. Dhoni coming through. He just won a World Cup as captain. And it was a very strong team. Kumble as captain on his sort of the last phase of his career. And we thought evenly matched tour. At the time, conditions used to be quite batting friendly. So, you thought we'd get a pretty good series. And then it was really, when I look back on it, Cyrus, it was a newsman's delight.
Yeah.
Because every day of that tour was story after story after story. And then, of course, what happened in Sydney just completely blew our minds.
But that sidetracked the cricket, Sydney. But before that, can we go a little bit earlier?
Yes.
And because you had lots of stories offline as well. As you said, it was set up to be a big battle. We had beaten them in the T20 World Cup.
Yeah.
Recently, we had some young blood with those great 4 soldiers in the middle order. So we were pretty well equipped.
If you look at that, the makeup of that Indian middle order, it was some of the greatest players that ever played for India were part of that team. But there was a selection issue. Now, very interestingly, Cyrus, what happened was that before that tour, when India selected its squad, they picked Virendra Sehwag. Now, Virendra Sehwag had a wretched domestic season. He couldn't hit a ball straight. He was getting bowled to straight balls. However, there was a reputation about Virendra Sehwag, and he had
And big match players.
Yeah, he had been left out of the Indians team of late, but they picked him over Akash Chopra, who had a brilliant domestic season. He made some 1,600 runs.
Right.
He was in the form of his life, but the choice was made.
Akash will be watching this. Huh?
And the choice they made was to go with Virendra Sehwag. But they had another conundrum, and this was very interesting, Cyrus. So we go into this practice game at St Kilda, which is just outside of
Sydney,
Melbourne. This is the first test was in Melbourne. It was a Boxing Day start. First test was in Melbourne. Before that, they had a practice game, and St Kilda is where Shane Warne grew up. That's his ground.
Yeah.
That's his ground. He played cricket there, and that's an Aussie footy ground as well, Australian rules. Small little ground, kind of little spitting with rain, and practice games, so no one really takes it extremely seriously, but you get a sort of clue into how the team's thinking. Just before that, in the series against Pakistan, Yuvraj had made 100. And they needed to play Yuvraj. Now, how are you going to play him with Dravid, Lakshman, Saurav and Sachin in that middle order? So Rahul Dravid comes out to open the batting. There's our first story. As soon as Rahul Dravid comes out to open the batting, Interestingly, I don't remember what he got, but obviously the idea is to get your eye in, play a little bit. There was a bit of rain around. I don't think we got much play. He comes in for the press conference. So the first question he gets asked is, Rahul, are you ready to open the innings? And Rahul, straight bats it, kind of.
Did he play the ball or left it alone?
He just like, oh well, we'll see what's best in the best interest of the team, and whatever the team management decides. But clearly, because he had been put in to open the batting in a practice game, the idea there is that you're preparing him to open the batting in the test match. Lo and behold, that's exactly what happens. Yuvraj Singh is in the middle order. First test match, Wasim Jafar's opening partner is Rahul Dravid. Virendra Sehwag is a squad player, doesn't get into the test match, and India lose handily at Melbourne, very, very badly. But
Kumble's captaincy would obviously be questioned immediately.
Yeah, but Kumble had a great first test as a bowler. On the first day of the test match, and I remember this very clearly, Kumble took 5 wickets. Australia batted first. First. Melbourne, first day of the test match, Kumble took 5 wickets. India played 2 spinners, Kumble and Harbhajan. And he took 5 wickets, and he comes into the press conference on the first day. And I said, now this is a veteran. He's almost 37, 38 at the time. He's on the last legs of his career. He's been made captain because earlier that year, Rahul had decided he didn't want to be captain, and he gave up. But he's this elderly statesman hugely respected. And I remember asking him, in terms of everything you've achieved in your career, where do you rate this spell? And he said, right on top in my overseas performances. And I remember this interaction clearly. 5 wickets on the first day of the test match, but India batted poorly in that game.
But not too many spinners get 5 wickets on an opening day in an Australian series. It's just almost, I can't think of any.
In fact, this is, we tend to forget, because of all the things that happened in this series.
There was some good cricket.
There was some exceptional cricket. And in fact, it was on this tour that Anil got his 600th test wicket. It was here that he got Andrew Symonds out. And
Symonds again.
and that was in Perth later on in the series. But his 600th wicket was on this tour. And he's to date remains India's highest wicket taker in Test and One Day cricket. So
that was the good part.
Yeah.
We lost the Test though, and as you say, lost handily. Very strong in their conditions, as we just found out recently in the BGT. Very rarely do you actually knock Australia down at home. But what happens next? Now we go to Sydney, right?
We go to Sydney, New Year's Day Test match, and if I remember correctly, now I think the Sydney Test match is played starting the 3rd of January. At the time, I think it was played on the 2nd of January. So you just one New Year's Day, and then on the next day, you're playing the Test match. And
let's do the maths. 26, 27, 28, 29, 30th.
Yeah.
31st, 1st off. Only 2 days off.
Yeah, I think I remember. I think it was the 2nd, and clearly now you're behind in the series, and you need to start playing better. And India played much better at Sydney. Tendulkar got 100.
Supposed to be spin friendly to some extent, at least day 3, 4, 5.
Yes, but they again. And what was interesting was, and I remember this.
Same team we played, same 11.
Yeah, which was the interesting bit, Cyrus. We go into the nets, and sometimes in the nets you get a little bit of an indication as to how the team is thinking. As in how
you guys allowed to watch them
at the time from close. And at that time the access was way better.
Would you ever say like such an elbow up?
Of course, all the time. And he would listen to me as well. He would say, oh yeah, that's the advice I was waiting for. But and you got the sense. And so Seva comes into bat and kind of has a net session. And all of us who are watching from the sidelines think, right, I think they're thinking about playing him.
Does he bat like he bats on in a match in the nets?
No, he bats properly.
He bats properly.
He bats properly.
Gets behind the ball and he's watching the ball.
He's leaving the ball. He's batting like an opener. And he's sort of clued in. He thinks he's going to play the Test match. And it's very interesting, Cyrus, I consider myself very lucky because at the time you had access. So you could kind of speak to the players, speak to the coaching staff, speak to people. So right after that, I think most journalists there and a lot of senior journalists on this tour, obviously Australia, everyone wants to go. So a lot of them, and they think, Sehwag's coming in. But just on a hunch, I call up Lalchand Rajput, who, I had built an equation with. You like to get a little... Who was the coach?
Yeah.
And I'd built an equation with, and he's a friendly man, you know him. He's, wonderful man, affable.
Very big on the domestic circuit for Mumbai.
Yes, and played Test cricket for India. And so I call him up and I said, sir, lag raha hai ki Viru khel raha hai na? So he said, nahi, 11 decide ho gaya.
Meaning?
11 decide. So he said, nahi khel raha hai. And he told me this, like they had just finished the team meeting. So it was fortuitous that I called him at that time.
Yeah.
And he had just finished. So I report the story.
You broke it before the team was announced?
Yeah. So I report the story and I put him back that, Sehwag's not going to play. The 11, I think the 11 was pretty much the same because Harbhajan played that test match. And so there we are. It's the same scenario.
Did you get any backlash?
Not at all.
From him?
No, not at all. You don't reveal who told you that. Now you can, 20 years, 15 years later. But, I think that's one of the joys of this work, Cyrus, is just having a little nugget of information. It's not life-changing. It's not game-altering.
As a cricket lover, the most important thing is who's the playing 11. I mean, from time immemorial, you always argue about that, especially in away tests.
And when you know it a day in advance, and the other thing is, Cyrus, you remember we were in the same sort of ecosystem at the time. You had the system of the news flash. You know, at the bottom of your screen, news television it still does. At the bottom would flash a bit of information. So you would frantically call, and you would want to trump the guy from 3 other news channels, all the guys who were there. Listen, I have this, put it out, take me on the phone.
It's a bit like that late news in print which you used to get in the 80s, where if you want to know the West Indies score because it would be printed really late, early morning or whatever, you would get 3:30 for 4.
Correct.
Just a small line like that.
And we put that out, and we wasn't in the 11, and then of course all the stuff that happened.
Okay, so now let's look at the stuff that happened. This is actually, this whole episode was supposed to get into that whole thing, but I don't want to, it's a very mucky story, and let's be honest, we don't really know what happened.
No.
I mean, we're just speculating, and Gaurav was right there, he's closest to it, so we're just taking his, I won't say judgment, but your perspective.
Sort of an informed view.
Yeah, informed view is the right way of putting it. Go ahead.
And Cyrus, when the incident happened, and the Australians, they have sledging down to an art.
True.
No, I think when you notice that a lot of the times and I think Indians have become a lot better at it. Virat has obviously played a big role in kind of organizing this part of India's game as captain, but the Australians had like this pack mentality. They would not sledge you as an individual. So India, Sachin and Harbhajan batting really well together. India's had a collapse, but now this partnership is being put together. Sachin's really playing well. Beautiful innings, typical Tendulkar. And our view was kind of like a mid-wicket type of angle. So at the moment that it happened, you could tell that these 2 or 3 guys have gone in together with
that group thing that they do, and the mob thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And Harbhajan's turned to them, and then you you don't notice this on the ground, but later when you look at the pictures, you kind of see the umpire, I think Mark Benson, putting his hand on his mouth like that, covering his lips.
So he can't be seen.
Picked up by cameras, telling the Indians, Harbhajan and Sachin, they're out there in the middle, what has actually been, what the Australians are accusing him of saying.
Oh.
So, because immediately...
But did he pick up the words or not himself?
Not sure at all. And at the time, you couldn't tell because you're so far.
Just rewind a second so we're very clear here. First blood was drawn by Aussies who are sledging Harbhajan.
Absolutely.
Or Sachin.
They wouldn't sledge Sachin.
And then Baji gives it back.
He gives it
In
back.
the giving it back, there's all kinds of words being said. And, who's to draw the line on what is offensive and all that. That's another whole world altogether.
And we know of the backdrop. We know the background story, which is that there was a series in India earlier. And the word in particular was found to be offensive. And, of course, subsequently, this sort of the storm starts to grow where the accusation comes in officially.
But on the pitch, it stops with Benson and gang.
It stops and the match continues.
So Symonds and Harbhajan don't go on about it?
No. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think it became a huge battle at the time on the The game goes on. It progresses. As it progresses, remember this is a test match that ends very dramatically with Michael Clarke taking 3 wickets at the last phase. So you're still very much within there. You thought, fine incident in saying, and then of course it's just starts to It starts to get reported, and we start to pick up what the allegations are.
Aussies now, after the end of day's play, they go to the match referee and say, bro...
Mike Proctor was the...
Mike Proctor, this is not on.
Yeah.
And so they level the charge. It's from their side,
They level the charge. And then the I think then
So
the process
our boys have
starts.
to be brought in for cross questioning. Who? Sachin and Harbhajan were there.
Yeah, and then there was a really sort of after the test match got over, there was a hearing, and that hearing went late into the night. So we're all sort of standing around.
But at the hearing,
waiting.
everyone was. Anil
Everyone,
Kumble, who all were-
all the teams were heard out at the
right. So
at the
it's
hearing.
not just the two or three fielders and who were in the eye of the storm. And
I think
Harbhajan.
Anil went in, the sort of everyone who was associated with the incident. Obviously, not the entire Indian team,
Right.
but everyone was being
This was
heard.
like a real courtroom drama that was playing
Oh,
out.
absolutely.
Because I remember we were all waiting for, you were talking about news flash, we were all waiting for what's happening. What were you getting from our boys? I'm presuming that you'll get more
Yeah.
information from them being a known face, etc. And you know a lot of the members of the team. Were you getting any information about what really happened from our side, our perspective?
No, I think the Indians were very, very clear that the racism charge was a no-go.
Okay.
There was just no way that there could...
So we stood behind Bhaji, everybody.
200%.
200%. Including the board.
Including the board, and that happened later. Subsequently,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
there was hearing, there was a hearing in Adelaide, and a new justice came in. All of that happened, but the Indians were very clear that there had been absolutely no breach of that, because it is an extremely serious charge.
Yeah, yeah.
To accuse someone of being a racist,
Yeah.
and then to find them guilty of it is a very, very serious charge. And the Indians were steadfast in their belief that that was not going to stand. They were going to fight it through and through. They were not going to accept. And it created a sort of bad blood between the teams, because this is, remember, just pre-IPL. So there aren't those relationships yet that had been
Funny story,
formed.
they're a couple years down, I think, for Deccan Chargers, if I remember correctly, they're both together.
They played together for MI.
Yeah, exactly. So
It starts to kind of snowball into this incident, into this very big story. All this while, the test match is going on as well, while this is happening in the background, and then we have this sort of dramatic ending to the test match, and it ends in this sort of crescendo with this incident, and the Australians really are aggressive during this test match.
they've gone the other way. They believe completely that he said something
Absolutely.
which is under the belt.
And there's a lot of other incidents happening in this test match. Bucknor's umpiring gets a lot of attention. That's
The
happening.
legacy of Steve Bucknor.
Yeah, and the test match ends, and the next day, Peter Roebuck, who's one of the sort of great
cricket
journalists
writers, yeah.
and writers of the time,
And
former
Somerset
cricketers,
captain.
he was so appalled by the behavior of the Australian team that he wrote a headline which was the banner headline in the Sydney Morning Herald, which is the biggest newspaper on there. And I think he called, if I remember it correctly, the headline was "A Pack of Wild Dogs." He went after this team. This is Australia's 16th straight test win. So all of this is festering in the background, and they've gone 2-love up in a 4-test match series. So India's chance of winning the series is over.
Right. When play resumed, you're seeing the body language is always aggressive if you're an Australian. In Australia, even more so, became double that.
You could tell that the incident had left a shadow now, and that the two teams were not on friendly terms anymore. You remember the famous Anil Kumble press conference where he said only one team was playing in the spirit of the game.
Very close to...
And, and Anil could say this. He had that sort of leadership caliber that you could... A young captain, I don't think if Dhoni had been made captain at the time, because he was really young, although he just won a World Cup, he would have come to a press conference and had the belief to say something of the kind. It really upset the Australians, because and it almost caused it caused another furor, because the spirit of the game is this sort of
Wedge just got
notion
deeper and
that
deeper with all these things
it kept
happening.
getting it kept getting a lot worse.
What was Bhaji saying in all this? Because he was in the middle of it. He and Symonds, what were their reactions?
So obviously, Symonds, a very quiet man, someone, and at this time now he made 100 in Sydney,
Right.
And there was another lovely little anecdote from there. Is Symonds is batting, and Ishant Sharma was bowling, and he kind of forward defensive, edges goes. Everyone in the stadium hears the edge. Everyone. I think even an 85-year-old deaf man would have heard that. It was such a loud edge. Everyone heard
Bucknor?
that edge. Bucknor didn't hear the edge. Symonds is standing. Unmoved, and he had this sort of impassive
he had that,
facade,
yeah.
and he's just standing. Well, umpire, make the
Well, the
decision.
umpire's, can't blame him.
Can't blame him.
Yeah.
The Indians are aghast. How is that not out? There was a bunch of bad decisions in that game, and it always sort of amuses me. How in retrospect you look back on these things, and how you sort of almost as a media pack hunt like dogs yourselves, because then the story becomes about this sort of incompetent umpiring, and how Bucknor just seems to
Is it incompetent, or is it that his record with India is just not very...
But Cyrus, what I found interesting was none of us contextualized it very well. And I think these are the kind of things when you're in the moment, you don't realize it. But when you look back on it, 2007, India win a series in England. Remember? First time in 1980
After 86.
After 86. Test match, I think Lords or maybe another venue. Lords, maybe at Lords. Lords, Srishant's batting. India's trying to save the test match. Monty Panesar, I think, bowling. Dead LBW. I mean, it would have been 3 reds on DRS if DRS was dead at LBW. Bucknor umpire doesn't give it out. India survives. Test match drawn. India wins the series 1-0.
So you're actually the advocate for Bucknor here.
I'm not the
You're saying
advocate
he's
for. I'm just
not a good umpire.
I'm just saying.
Bias and not a good umpire are two different things
Completely
altogether.
different things.
Yeah.
Makes mistakes. Maybe at this time he's aging. He's at the last bit of his career. He's made a couple of errors. However, at this time, now another angle gets added to this entire fracas. There you are. This umpire, it's the world against India, this sort of siege mentality.
What is the crowd reaction?
Australian crowds.
Partisan completely?
Completely partisan.
And now,
completely partisan. And
screaming for blood.
always will. I think the Australian crowd is always the 12th man.
Yeah.
In any of these, it doesn't matter if there's
no, but there's 12th man, but the spirit of the game is still there.
Yeah.
I mean, we are also like that. I mean, all countries are like that. But there's that blood thing when it's personal, when the...
And, obviously, the brews are flowing. And by this time, these test matches go into the evening. By this time, a lot of liquid has been consumed. So, the crowds are really... New Year crowds, it's a holiday crowd. They're going after this. And this is an Indian team that has legends, but also this sort of feisty young players. Harbhajan's young player, not young, but he's been around for a bit.
7 years into the game.
But,
98 he made his debut,
98, so he's...
But he was 18 then, so he's still a young man.
And then Ishant Sharma coming through, MSD, sort of... So and he had this long... So, there's a sort of panache to this Indian team as well. And this series, the cricket we're seeing is very good. Tendulkar's batting like a god again. And then all of this is happening. And I remember Symonds comes into the press conference a little bit later. And again, Cyrus, very interesting. He says in the press conference, of course I hit it. To the edge. Yeah. And I then later in that evening, or was it the next day, I meet a ICC source, someone we know from the ICC. And he said, I'm really surprised at you guys. You're journalists, right? He's planting a story. And we are very happy sometimes when you get these ones. I'm very surprised. As a cricketer playing actively in a match, you're not supposed to comment on an umpire's decision. That's the rule.
Too many rules.
But if you do, you get reprimanded and sometimes fined, because you're not supposed to comment on the merits of a decision. The rule still stands. It's still there. And he had commented on an umpire's decision by admitting that he was out. That he had edged it.
And not walked. Yeah.
So here's another story to report. On the technicality of the rule, are you supposed to be commenting on an umpire's decision, which has even gone in your favor?
Right.
So yeah, but this starts to get more and more. What's interesting is, and I can't remember the exact location of this, but what's interesting is this. Now Chetan Chauhan is the tour manager. Wonderful old man, played cricket for India. He's played Gavaskar's partner, made 2,000 test runs
without 100, which is a record.
Yes. A wonderful man, genial, would call the media pack to his room. Also, I think you'll remember him, M.V. Sridhar,
of course,
who's passed away unfortunately now. Doc Sridhar, we used to call him, was the media manager. Another wonderful man. This was the administrative unit of this tour is full of
calm minds to control what was brewing in the background and foreground.
So even if they would not brief us officially, they would give us information. They would tell us how things are progressing, etc. And we had a press conference really late into the night with Chetan Chauhan, very, very late into the night. And it gets to tell you that how sports people live in their own bubble. We are having this press conference. I think it's a hotel in Sydney where the Indians are staying, right, very late into the night. And it's on one of the outer rooms in like a conference room or something. And Harbhajan comes from the other side. He's not supposed to obviously address us, but he sees this whole media pack and he sees it's 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever. He's going up to his room. And after a meal or whatever, he's gone out with his friends. He comes out and he comes in and looks at all of us and sort of in this cheeky way says, सब ठीक है ना सब लोग आप लोग सब लोग ठीक हो and सब अच्छा चल रहा है. I wanted to turn around and tell him, dude, here we are because of you. We are cricket journalists. We would have finished there, or we would have gone out somewhere. It's Sydney after all. It's a brilliant city, but here we are trying to get Chetan Chauhan to give us sound bites in the middle of the night on where the situation sits right now. But it got more and more.
So judgment was reserved, right? It didn't come through at that point.
No, I think the initial decision was that he was banned, and then the team
refused to play.
Went to Canberra for a practice game, which was in the middle of the test matches, and that's where this whole drama happened of the team refusing to sit in the bus and go to Canberra because. Sydney to Canberra is a bus drive.
1 hour or something.
Yeah,
close by.
And the team was meant to go to play this practice game, but they refused to leave, and that was. It was.
My God, it was like a
It was
real action
crazy
thriller.
dramatic because what we do in television, Cyrus, is we always need visuals of things happening, right? So you have your camera person with you. At this time, we used to travel in a group of 2 people. These are bigger cameras at the time, not these tiny ones that you see now, which are so much easier to carry. And the reporter is always carrying the tripod around because the cameras. And so we needed visuals of the team leaving as you reported the story from Sydney onwards to Canberra. And then this sort of starts to filter through. One of us hears it, then you sort of try and confirm it. No one's picking up their phone. Couple of the guys are going for walks. And you're wondering what's going on. The buses.
Couple of the cricketers are going for
couple,
walks. Just seeing them
they're
roaming
not,
around.
Yeah, and I think it was. I think Robin Singh was there, and a couple of other guys were there. And they were sort of casually walking around, and you wonder what's going on. Why is this team not now? This is the scheduled time for departure. Why are they not going? And that's when you knew the tour was in trouble, because.
So just put in perspective. The initial report was that Harbhajan has to be banned.
Yeah, 3 test matches.
3 test matches. We protested and said we're not doing anything.
Yeah. So that's when it starts to become a diplomatic kind of situation, because then it becomes country versus country. It's no longer cricket team versus cricket team, individual versus individual. That's when it starts to assume like a...
Who was the neutral arbitrator in the initial phase?
So first it was in the ICC's court, right? So there's Mike Proctor, who was the match referee. And then later on, Justice Hanson came on, who was an independent juror who was appointed by the ICC to hear this
Justice Hanson from Australia,
from New Zealand.
From New Zealand.
He was
so that's
from
neutral.
Yeah. But when this team decides not to sit in the bus and go to Sydney, that's when go onwards to Canberra, where the practice match was. And, I can't quite remember exactly how they managed to resolve that situation.
I think the BCCI must have been involved. Phone calls must have happened.
Yes.
Panic must have happened. They must have put the whole decision on hold.
And
carry on with the game.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the team goes on to Canberra and then obviously onwards to Perth, where one of the great moments of Indian cricket happens.
Yeah. So there's a silver lining here.
Yeah.
The tour not going according to plan, because the first 2 tests go Australia's way. We have all these incidents which cause actually fear. I think if I remember correctly, we were really worried that they would not play cricket, because Australia was cricket and is cricket even today.
And I remember we were trying to get a sense of the situation, because the story was moving so quickly. So me and another journalist, outside of the Sydney cricket ground, there's these little benches. So Chetan Chauhan was a very nice man, so he would come and so he came in and sort of briefed us, and he said, "Yaar, man nahi lag raha hai in logon ka khelne ka aur." They are very upset. They are very upset.
Gone,
And he said that, they are thinking about they will go back. because the scenario that is emerging is such that they just don't want to digest this allegation. And at this time, the thing with Anil Kumble is that leadership is something that comes naturally to him. So I think India was very lucky at the time that he was captain.
I can't believe any captain wanting to sign up for this, because you're here to play cricket and you can play as hard cricket as you want and you can win and you can lose. But this is not like a political situation where you're literally representing your country on another level altogether.
And you also, Cyrus, don't want a scoreline that says 4-0. You want a scoreline because you're playing well. And so, when you're coming to Perth, you want to make sure that, and India never won in Perth.
And it wasn't still the fastest wicket in the world and all that? I mean, so you didn't expect any touring team to win in Perth?
In Perth. And this is the old Wacker ground, not where they play now. This is the original Wacker ground, with the Fremantle doctor. We heard about all these phrases. And India never won in Perth. Australia weren't used to losing in Perth. They only would lose to the great West Indies teams. They would never lose in Perth, and all of the sort of the Australian attack, Brett Lee,
I mean, they had all the weapons for Perth, there's no question.
All the weapons for Perth.
So do you think this whole thing made a big difference?
Yes.
Like with the Jazba or whatever, I don't know what's the right word to use. Suddenly you're filled, it's like an Amitabh Bachchan film. You're suddenly filled with that, now, aa gaya, mera time aa gaya kind of thing.
Absolutely. And in Perth, Virendra Sehwag comes back into the 11 and they play three fast bowlers. Yes. And they play three fast bowlers. And Harbhajan sits out, interestingly, from the test match.
So you're playing only one spinner. So
Kumble is the captain. He's playing. And, Perth is obviously remembered for many things. It's remembered for the memorable Ishant Sharma spell to Ricky Ponting. When that happens, Virendra Sehwag's contribution there, where he says, I know the boy, he's played with me for Delhi, he'll bowl that one extra, ek aur dalega. Kumble turns to him and asks him, he's bowled a 6-7 over spell. He asks him, will he bowl one more? And Viru says, yes, he'll bowl another one. He's 19 years old. Ishant Sharma is beautiful. And we had this lovely vantage point. Cyrus, sometimes on television, you don't necessarily get... No, we had this sort of over the slips view. So he was running into us. And he really troubled Ponting. Ponting had...
Then he hit him also with the short ball.
A couple of times.
I remember that.
And there was
and hitting Ponting. Ponting was the god of the pull and hook.
Yeah. And he really troubled him. And then, he gets the edge and Rahul catches it. And we had this sort of lovely vantage point, which was right over slips. And you could tell this is a different surface because the ball was carrying beautifully. And then India plays I think everyone knows that test match. India plays a really good test match and wins in Perth. I think by this time you could tell that the relationship is frosty now. Especially, I think the Roebuck article, it scarred the Australians. So at the time, the
Aussies felt everyone's against them now.
Yes, and we had this a relationship with Adam Gilchrist at the time. He would do match review interviews with us.
Right.
You remember players used to be available at that time. You had like a commercial arrangement where you would. So this is Adam Gilchrist's last series. He retired. This series
when he drops Lakshman and says, "I'm not going to play again."
And he said that in an interview to me.
I can't see a modern player doing that.
Yeah,
in 1 second
he
saying,
just said,
I'm just not good enough.
I had that moment of realization. And he hadn't completed 100 tests. I think he was on 95 or 96 test matches and he hadn't completed 100 tests, but he's decided, and he has this and Gilchrist is the nicest of Australians.
True.
But
did you continue with the relationship?
Yes. Yeah. And
so would you get anything from their side now?
So Gilchrist was very clear that he was a vice captain of the team. So they were very clear putting out the thing that we are also determined that this is, and he was the wicket keeper at the time. So he said we are very determined that we want to see this through to its logical conclusion.
They were very determined that Harbhajan had used the word, and that Andrew Symonds is innocent of.
And at the time, now they are starting to clam up as well, because now everybody knows this is bigger than a cricket story.
Right.
And I think back in India as well, it was being reported as bigger than a cricket story. I wouldn't get a lot of the coverage, obviously being in Australia, but it was being reported as a story that impacted relations.
It was eating up the cricket, actually, honestly, because everyone was more interested in what's going on with the case.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it was about how it was going to impact relations between the two countries. India is at this time really rising as a cricket superpower. are, and I mean this from a financial standpoint as well. And the Australians are obviously the trendsetters. 16 straight Test matches. Just try to imagine what that is like to win 16 consecutive Test matches, and to be on this juggernaut. But I think
for the second time.
For the second time, because the first
this
was the first time, and then it happened again when India broke the sequence when they came in 2001. This was the first. The 2001 sequence was the first one, and this was the second time that it was happening. And I think the Roebuck article cut them up a little bit as well, because this was almost one of their own. Roebuck is English, but he lived in Australia. He's a Sydney, but he was one of those, again, someone that you get to, as in this job, have the privilege of meeting people like this. Who was kind of like the epitome of what a journalist should be, because he would never even attend press conferences. He would not go in. His USP, his calling card was observation. He would observe a passage of play and write something that then you would look at and say, right, I was at the same thing, but I didn't notice this.
He wrote beautifully.
And he wrote beautifully, and he expressed beautifully, and he called this out.
May I just say one thing? I wasn't a fan because of him trying to drop Richards and Garner from Somerset, and subsequently both of them walked off. And so, as a huge Richards fan,
But you can sort of compartmentalize and say, here's the writing is.
The writing was fantastic. I still read everything he wrote.
And the Aussies were not pleased by that comment. I know for a fact that the Australian team was.
Let's jump then to the end of the Perth Test. We win the Test. What's the reaction from the Aussie crowd and the Aussie players?
Respect from the crowd in particular. I think Perth was a slightly different crowd from what I remember, because the Test match ends and there's this last wicket partnership. Mitchell Johnson is hitting the ball all over the place, and you're kind of a little worried. I don't think one of these things happens that some last wicket partnership. But Kumble was very calm and he knew. They win the Test match, and guess who runs onto the field with the tricolour?
Mr. Harbhajan Singh.
Yes. And he's not been a participant in the game, but he's obviously invested in the game heavily. And this was a real heist, Cyrus, because at this time, India doesn't win Test matches, hasn't won a Test match ever in Perth before. They've just won a series in England earlier on, but overseas Test match wins. Overseas Test match wins were a rarity. And to win in Perth. So I remember, the team was really celebrating. Had a wonderful time. They were enjoying themselves, went late into the evening. We got at that time there was access, so we got interviews. Anil had just picked up his...
You guys go in the dressing room?
We would not go into the dressing room there. I think they would...
But once they come out, you have access to them.
And Mr. Doc Sridhar was wonderful like that. So he would... RP Singh had a great Test match. So, we all had. And the team was celebrating late into the night. And obviously, they were enjoying themselves because there was, I think, a little bit of gap before they went to Adelaide for the final Test match. And they're celebrating, and we are all trying to sort of do our thing. And we had built an equation. I had known Anil for a very long time. So as he came out, I told him, Anil, can I get an interview? This is fantastic. He said, okay, sure. So what time? I asked him. I thought, they are celebrating late into the night. He'll say, "Kal dopahr ko main batata hu. I'll message you." He said, "Yeah, come to my hotel 9 in the morning." I said, "Anil, you've at that time you couldn't kind of." I was delighted, but I was at 9 in the morning. And you know what the theory was? The theory was, we've won the Test match, but we have a series to level.
True.
It's not a one-off. So that's he always knew the big picture. He knew that the team had won and done something really special in Perth. And I think he had played a huge role in that win from a captaincy point of view and also as a bowler. But what a remarkable man. And then 9 o'clock in the morning, I had to be there. So hold on any celebrations we were going to have, because captain's only available that time in the morning. He would probably have had a vegetarian meal at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the evening, but in bed by 9:30.
My kind of guy. So it's IDFC First Fact time. Such was the impact of the furor created by the Sydney Test that Steve Bucknor, who was supposed to umpire in the third Test at Perth, was actually removed from officiating the Test. He never officiated again in a Test featuring India. What's your take? What happened actually on the field that day?
I think subsequently everything that I've heard over the many years, that this is now more than almost 20 years ago, 16, 17 years ago,
18 years,
8. And I think both sides remain rooted to that belief that that they are right in this one. I think even today, I have never, even off the record, I can be
So it's
very
tough to
clear.
make a call, you're saying.
It's very tough to make a call, Cyrus. I don't think anybody and I've interacted with many of these people again and again over the years, having had conversations, interviews, and I don't remember even one off the record conversation where they said that Harbhajan used the word. The Indians do not believe that to be the case, and I think it's very important. The label that sits on you as a human is very important, and I think there was no way that label was going to be acceptable, because it will carry with you for the rest of your life.
And the team is also buried with it's not just the individual.
Yeah, and it's tragic, of course, that Andrew Symonds is dead now. He had that accident and passed away.
But they did make up in a sense.
Well, they played together. And subsequently,
I remember
you would
pictures
have
being shown. I know you guys must have done some interview on it as well, of them being together, or smiling together or whatever.
And what was interesting was that I think there was a particular game where Harbhajan bowled and Symonds took the catch with MI, and there was a warm hug between them. And then I think there have been Twitter spars, and people have said things. It's one of those mysteries that will never get resolved. I wonder if anybody has recordings of the stump mic from the day that might come out soon. It's one of those things, you remember the Harbhajan Srishant incident? No one's ever seen the video of that incident.
I think we saw it live. Or we saw
you didn't see the actual incident. You saw the outcome of the incident.
Right? I mean, he was crying and all that.
This is one of those things where you don't, and I think the fact that you come out of this. And I remember, Cyrus, we were having there was the final hearing in Adelaide. We had to come back to in Adelaide after the test match got over, where something astonishing happened which nobody's ever really talked about. You're such a big Sehwag fan. We are all Sehwag made 100 in that test match, and in a whole session didn't hit a 4. Within the Sehwag.
A whole session?
In a whole session, did not hit a 4 in Adelaide. It was the flattest of decks. And it just petered out into a draw.
Yeah.
It was, and people think of Virendra Sehwag.
How much did he make in that session?
He got a lot of runs. I mean, he must have got 20 or
in
25.
Singles?
Yeah, but didn't hit a 4 for a whole session. I think it was between lunch and tea one day.
How sad. One of the greatest moments in cricketing history, and we don't even record it because of the the overview that we had.
Yeah, and we do this sort of this court hearing at the end. We are sitting outside the courtroom. We are not experienced reporters when it comes to court reporting, and somehow I happened to end up late at this hearing. It was just about to begin, and before that there was a briefing in which news reporters had been told that you cannot report from inside the courtroom.
Yeah,
it's not permitted.
So no live.
You cannot report from inside the courtroom. All of you have to remember that. Now I missed this briefing. I did not know that this was the case. At the time, you remember these tiny mobile phones. I remember, Cyrus, you didn't have a mobile phone for the longest.
But you would message me regardless. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's just, And we had these little mobile phones from which you had to send text messages.
So you broke the law.
I was reporting feverishly from inside.
And CNIBN was the only people getting it.
Our channel was carrying these news flashes live, where so we come out and this irate news television reporters complaining about me to the ICC guy, saying, what is going on?
So you had your own Harbhajan moment.
And I was like, there was these stern clerks and everybody around. I thought, mere ko jail mein to nahi pakdenge na. I want to go home, because
But you didn't know.
I had no idea. But thankfully but then again I had a scoop. Because I could report
scoop
live.
Is already done. They can't pull it back.
This was reporting live on the judgment as Hansen was reading it out.
So your channel got it first.
We got it first
by far.
because I was late to the briefing. And this whole saga ended. And Cyrus, I remember, because this briefing was scheduled after the test match. I was meant to fly home right after the test match. And then I had to stay for the 2 extra days. And this had already been a month and a half in Australia in this exhausting tour all around the country. First time to this thing. And I told my wife, and we'd just been married like 2 or 3 years. And I told my wife that, listen, I have to stay extra. And she sent me one terse message back saying, happy cricket to you. I thought,
wow.
I thought.
there are referees and there are referees.
If this incident is going to cost me my marriage, then
who would you go after, Harbhajan or Andrew Symonds?
Yeah, luckily no damage done, thankfully. But yeah, wonderful memories from that tour, just of the cricket as well as.
But before we wrap it up, I want to just quickly mention that the relationships between Australia and India, thanks to the IPL, I think, quickly got back on track.
Yeah, I remember we met, we did an interview with Matthew Hayden on the year after when the IPL came through and the auctions finished, right? And he was in the Chennai Super Kings. Yeah. And the interview was right before the game against MI, because MI was where Harbhajan first landed. His first team was MI. So
Hayden was very close to Andrew Symonds, if I remember correctly.
Yes, they were very good friends.
So yeah, he would be the first to support him.
And Symonds was signed up for a huge amount by Deccan Chargers.
Right.
And Shishir Tangri, who's been on your show, was the
Mumbai Indians guy.
Was the director of operations for the Deccan Chargers
well,
at the time. So I remember doing an interview even with Symonds, and he also said, "Listen, I don't want to talk much about that before that." But
he told you off camera or during the interview?
He said before the camera that this is not a subject I really want to, because I think it scarred him.
Yeah.
And it affected him continuously.
Also, he was in India.
Yes, and he looks back on this time and he feels like his own board let him down.
Yeah.
I think he
they backed off at some point.
Yes, and so Hayden laughed in that interview and he said, "Listen, I know that I'm going up against Harbhajan Singh, but in this game, I'm the home team."
Yeah,
and he's the away, so I'm really going to relish that. The relationships mended. Gilchrist came in as well. He was Deccan Chargers captain. Deccan went on to win the IPL in the second year. And subsequently, while there have been incidents, Indian, Australian cricketers have been, and I think it's...
Well, there are incidents, and we want some incidents in cricket. You want a little, higher class of sport going on, and hence tempers will flare. But there's incidents and there's incidents. Okay, so this I think was something that was so ugly and unnecessary. It's, as we say, not cricket.
Yes, it wasn't. But I think it taught us a lot that the game can impact you viscerally. It can really leave an impression on you. And you also, I think, no matter what the truth of the story might be, it's a reminder that there are certain boundaries you do not cross even in the heat of the most intense sport. You do not, people will remember that if something is deeply offensive, and I think players have learned this and imbibed this lesson. You will remember the story, an incident recently. I think it was a West Indian fast bowler bowling to Joe Root, and he missed the ball. And I think he used a slur. And I think he said the slur was in the sense that you're gay or something referencing that. And Root immediately turned around and said, "There's nothing wrong with that."
But each person is different. We can't, the measure of offense to be taken can't be exactly the same.
But I think what has happened is that as a result of seeing how this played out, players at least got a deeper sense of what can affect people and how it can, it can scar them. And so there are certain boundaries that you do not cross.
Having said that, as we end the episode here, you have called me names when we worked together in the television channel.
But those were all well-deserved.
They weren't racist, but I felt, for me, it was very offensive. It was to do with intellect and things like that, which I personally felt was far worse.
Yeah, but I think if we have a hearing now, let's see which side of the fence the verdict lands on.
I have just one thought. Maybe Mr. Benson knows everything. Because I'm thinking if the incident is between mid-wicket and non-striker, I'm just thinking it's possible. But
look at how smart that was.
Yeah. But I think a lot of them do that, don't they, when they're sledging? Everybody's learned how to cover the mouth.
Yeah, but for an umpire, he knew immediately this was serious.
Yeah. All right, Gaurav, thank you so much. Very controversial tour. You were in the eye of the storm, reported illegally. Please remember that, ICC and everybody watching, please. Okay, before we go, a quick alert from IDFC FIRST Bank about a new scam which goes like this. Make instant money by liking YouTube videos. Scammers use WhatsApp or SMS to offer part-time jobs with high earnings for liking or subscribing to videos. They make small payments initially, then ask for larger investments and disappear. So please don't respond to unknown numbers offering high returns and never share personal or banking information. Stay cautious of suspicious links or apps.